Sal has already told us, he's informed us that he is punting, basically, emotionally, on the 2024 Mets season.
I didn't say
well,
that.
You said that you don't care about 2024. You care about 2025 with Juan Soto.
I said I'm more excited
exactly
for the
what you said.
offseason.
Okay,
right.
than the
more,
season.
More excited, yeah,
all right. So let me get this straight. So, Sal, you were born in 79.
Yes.
All right. The end of the disco era.
Right.
1979, the New York Mets went 63, 99, and 1. They actually had a tie that season. So as Sal started to crawl around the earth, the Mets were a 63-win team. They were not a team that a lot of people went to watch. Only 789,000 people. Now, when the Yanks and the Mets are good, there's 3-4 million at these stadiums. The Mets had 780,000 people at Shea that year. Sal, I'm going to do some simple math for you, and I really hope to help you here. This is season number 45 for you.
Right.
Okay?
So my lifetime, season 45.
You've seen, now, granted, in terms of early memories and blurry snapshots, whatever, but you have been on planet Earth for 45 Mets seasons. Now, if you reach the average life expectancy for the American male, and I hope you fly by it, it's 77, 78 for those of you who don't know.
I don't know, but I will say I made it safely, and I did take the subway today, so here I am.
That's a good start. But simple math tells me that you've got a lot fewer Met seasons to watch than ones you've already consumed.
So you think fewer than oh, man.
No, just doing the simple math.
On the back nine.
Well, we all are.
Yeah.
I mean, we are. yeah.
Okay, all right, I get it. Right.
So what I'm saying is, while
25 to 30 seasons, maybe.
I hope it's 40, but based on the math projections, the data, you've already watched more Mets seasons than you will watch moving forward. And same for me with the New York Yankees. Right. Same for Hoff with the New York Mets. Same for Dove with the Yankees. It is what it is. You need to either clarify or I've got to intervene to punt emotionally. Maybe you don't like the word punt, but I'll just use it to keep going.
I think it's a fair word.
Okay. To punt emotionally on a Mets season where you've got 3-4 young kids, and in a sport, it's not the NBA, where anything can happen, is absolutely insane.
They're punting. I'm not. And I have the highest of expectations, especially after Steve Cohen took over. So I told you, of course I'm going to watch this season and root for the Mets and hope that they could do well. But the reality is, while certain things can come of this season, the most important thing is evaluating the young talent, and there's no chance that the Mets could go out there and compete for a division or a World Series. So what do you want me to do? You want me to get emotionally invested and be blind faith in the Mets thinking they could win? The Mets aren't even doing that.
Yes.
See, why? That would be stupid.
No, not in March. That's when you do that in March. In June, you come back to reality.
You think Steve Cohen or David Stearns really believes that this Mets team can win a World Series?
I don't know what they think, quite frankly. I honestly don't know.
Do you think this Mets team
can
win?
No, I think the Mets are going to be horrendous.
Okay, so then why would I emotionally
Because you're a Mets fan.
I have the highest of expectations and the highest of standards, and while I will be excited about this upcoming season for different reasons, more once we get to opening day, the calendar starts to move and you start to get closer and closer to November. Yep. Usually for a baseball fan, it's about October. For me, it's about November. 2024, I'm more excited about November than October because the Mets can't do what I want them to do, BT. I've seen plenty of playoff teams, even in my 45 years or whatever it's been as watching this Mets team. I've seen playoff appearances. I've seen World Series appearances. Matter of fact, I've seen more recent World Series appearances than Yankees fans have. And I do take some solace in that. However, I want to see a World Series win. The last one I saw was 7 years old, just turned 7 years old in 1986. And I know that this year is not going to be a year where they can win a World Series. So I look ahead to next offseason where I believe they will get back on track after Steve Cohen has learned the better way to build a team, and it will be the beginning of sustained success. Not just because I think they're going to go out there and be a big player in free agency, but because the way they're doing things will set the Mets up for successful future. This year it's a wash.
Here's a simple question. Why can't you do both? Why not?
I'm going to watch the games. What do you think?
I don't know.
Oh, but I'm just going to watch them knowing that the Mets aren't going to do any damage this year.
See, here's what I find interesting. So to me,
man, if they make a third wild card, whoop-de-doo. It does nothing for me.
Really? You don't think that's the start?
Would you be excited if don't hold me to a different standard?
Go ahead. No, I have to. Because
why?
You're not going to like what I'm going to say because it is a different standard.
But if you played the same thing with the Jets versus the Giants,
I'll take a lowly wild card as a starting point. Let's go, please.
I mean, it has been 13 years.
I'll take anything.
Yeah, I understand that. For me, I'm not accepting less than. This is a different year. The Mets themselves, I'm just following along.
Oh,
they're in evaluation mode. They're punting on this season. They said, why do you think they traded Scherzer and Verlander? This is an evaluation season. They're not going for it this year. Doesn't mean they can't make the wild card. Doesn't mean maybe they could go on some kind of fun run. They win a wild card round or maybe get to a championship series. I mean, come on, think about what we're talking about here.
I mean, I don't believe that that's possible.
Sure,
but
I'll follow along. But I want the gold. I want to win the World Series. So I'm more excited about November because Soto
is going to spurn you.
No,
you didn't think I'd come back with that?
Oh, you're waiting on that one.
Listen, I knew you'd go for it quick, as you always have the last couple of days. That Soto voice already annoying.
I've been spurned before, but I'm looking forward to it. It doesn't mean you just ignore this season, obviously. I've watched crappy seasons my entire life as a Met fan.
But you didn't have this, and I haven't known you your whole life, but I'm going to guess you haven't gone into seasons like you're going into this one where you're already fast-forwarding in your mind 12 months from now.
Because it's different now.
That is hard to do.
Because this, to me, should be the last year of less than, the last year of being second citizen, the last year of settling for lower expectations. This should be it. No more. I will not do it anymore. This is the last year. I'll give him this year, and then after that, it should be going out there trying to win a World Series, and I firmly believe that that's where they're going to be in a year from now. Right now, how can I be excited about a season with Luis Severino and Sean Manaea, Jose Quintana as the main guys?
I'm going to tell you how in a second, by the way. 10:09 on the fan. BT and Sal, 877-337-6666. So, I mean, he had an answer, and I knew he would, but the intervention has not worked out. My answer is this, and by the way, if you're just tuning in, I'm trying to, at least on some level, convince Sal that you can be locked into the now with a very excited eye toward the future, because there's no assurance, just like there's no assurance that Juan Soto stays with the Yankees.
Hey, you better be excited about the now.
Oh, I'm pumped about the now, and, I'm going to be pumped about tomorrow as well. When I have Judge and Soto, really Soto and Judge for the next 6-7 years back-to-back, while Judge is still in his prime. But if I'm a Mets fan, I'm saying to myself, all right, I honestly mean this, Sal. I'm locked into this year, and I'm pumped about the prospects of the future. I do agree. The Mets will build this out properly, and hopefully it's a bright future. But you know what? Everybody tells me how good, and I know he's good, how good. This is what you should be locked into this year. How good Pete Alonso is. Pete Alonso, the greatest Met of all time. Pete Alonso. You can't let him leave. Pete Alonso. There's no possible future in Queens without Pete Alonso. Well, you might be right, but if Pete Alonso's that good, if Pete Alonso's that guy, how about you go out and you do what Aaron Judge did during a contract year and bang 60 bombs?
I think
Alvarez. Okay, so that's something that you watch.
Yeah, okay, but
that's something that you root for.
But
Alvarez hit 30 home runs.
I'm talking about the ultimate success, not individual success.
But if you have enough individual success, you'll have maybe enough team success to make this year fun.
Right, but who are you kidding? Make this year fun, what, for the little brother? Like, hey, look at you. You did it. 81 wins. Like, they're 500. Like, max, if everything goes well for this team. My problem
if everything goes wrong or everything's going right?
Well, if everything goes well for this team, which, by the way, it already hasn't with Koda Singa being out.
I know.
If everything goes well for this team, what do you think that their ceiling is?
If everything goes well for the Mets, I think, first of all, I'm on the record, I think Severino's going to have a good season.
Yeah.
I start there. So, I know the Senga thing complicates it. If everything goes well for the Mets,
you've been saying for months they're going to be a bad team. Let's just say best case scenario.
I do think they'll be bad, but I'm processing if everything goes well. Just to answer your question, 85-ish wins in the hunt, which might open up the gates for Steve to do a little flex during the at the trade deadline to make it even better.
Agreed. Let's say they get into the postseason. Can the Mets realistically go on a run this postseason?
I don't know. I didn't think the Diamondbacks could.
It's weird.
What do you think the Met fan thought in 1973 when their team won 82 or 83 games and they almost got to and they lost to the World Series to the A's, the great A's?
It could happen. I'm not getting sucked in again. I'm not doing it. I am not getting sucked in again. No chance. Not with this pitching lineup. Sure. Like, I do believe Pete is going to have a career year. I love Francisco Lindor as a player. I like Brandon Nimmo. Bader, Marte, I have my issues with. Bader's always hurt. Otherwise, I like the idea. You don't have to go around the whole diamond. Alvarez, I'm very excited about. There are some of the young guys I'm excited about. Not Vientos, not Beatty. More so, Drew Gilbert, Jet Williams. Yeah, Acuna, whatever. Some of these guys, eventually, when you see them up here.
Yeah.
But the pitching is the biggest problem for me. I like their bullpen. The starting pitching is the biggest problem for me. And this year, I already know going in that odds are the Mets aren't going to win the World Series. And that's what I'm about. It's weird. I can't ask you that question, BT, because almost every year, for the last 30 whatever years, the expectations are, or the hope is, that you have a team that can win a World Series.
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen.
Although I think mine's been a little more realistic than some Yankee fans. I have leaned into, meaning I've accepted, even though I've ranted and raved about it, but at least I understood I felt that a decline was coming. I don't mean this year. I mean like last year. I knew that they weren't going in the right direction. I didn't love the composition of the roster. But yeah, I always thought, bare minimum, Yankees squeeze out 92, 93 wins, get a wild card. We're playing some October baseball. Yeah. So I understand I'm maybe a little bit of a different fan as a Yankee fan to ask that.
Well, it's just different.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I would root for if I was a Met fan?
Yeah.
I actually have it written down
okay.
right now. And I'm not going to give you individual player stuff. If I'm a New York Mets fan right now, and I get what you're saying, Sal, I am really enthused and I'm locked into every syllable that is said about or comes out of Juan Soto's mouth this year. That is a real thing on my radar. I get it. But I'm also going to juggle and compartmentalize the season this way. Hey, Mets, give your fans a 13-11 start. Just don't drown in April. If you can do that, now at least there's a bridge to Sanger's other men. Sanger's going to pitch in May. And before it, I'm not saying you're going to start 20-6. You're not going to be the 1984 Tigers starting 35-5. But if you could just not hemorrhage the season away, game or two over 500, at 500, into May, you have a season with the third wild card.
All right, forget what you think is going to happen. We'll get to the calls here in a second.
Yep.
Forget what you think is going to happen. More exciting, the Mets right now going into the season, or the possibility of getting Soto?
You're going to disagree with my answer. It's the Mets going into the season.
I do disagree.
Because that's tangibly in front of me. Soto was still a theory.
Okay, but it's more exciting to think about.
Yeah, but not if these young kids pop. I mean, that's exciting.
Alvarez, exciting. Sure. Some of the other guys that we haven't seen yet, exciting. Results of this year, not so much. The Mets are punting. I'm following right along.
For a team whose slogan is "You gotta believe," we are sitting here before St. Patrick's Day, and we're saying basically, "You gotta punt."
Yeah, well,
it's embarrassing.
As far as World Series goes, not punt as far as the entire season, as far as being a World Series caliber team. That they are not.
Sal, 877-337-6666, BT and Sal. We are inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Friends at Town Fair remind you that you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires. From Connecticut to Maine, nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Let's go to Eddie on Long Island first up. Eddie, what's cooking?
How you doing, guys? I have a big problem with Sal. I got to tell you, the Mets are not going to be as bad as everybody thinks. They got a lot back from Scherzer and what's his name?
Verlander.
And Verlander. A lot back. We don't know what those young guys are going to be. And you know what? We don't need all these superstars. What we need is guys who fill the box score, guys who steal a base, who get 2 hits, who play good D. We need just good clubhouse people, a tight team. And you know what? If the Mets
So what's your problem with me? Where do we disagree?
They would have traded Alonso if they were punting. And they would have got back a lot more and said, let's go for next year. But they didn't do that. And I got to tell you, the pitching is going to be better than you think.
Based on what?
These guys are going to be in the mix.
Based on what? And in the mix for what? Can they win the division, Eddie?
Anything's
Well,
possible.
Eddie, can they win the division? You get the Braves and Phillies.
They can't win.
This is what I'm talking about. I'm not doing the delusional method. You could do it.
How do you know those other teams aren't going to have injuries? How do you know what's going to happen?
Well, they'd have
with
to have
those
about
other
6
guys?
injuries
You
each.
don't know.
I mean, listen, Eddie, appreciate the
They've
call.
had
I mean,
injuries.
come on.
The Braves lost to Cunha and won a World Series a couple of years ago.
That's true. I mean, I'm being optimistic here, just trying to give a pathway to an enjoyable April and maybe May, but it's got to be doused with some reality. I mean, the Phillies, it was certainly the Braves are
How do we know?
Immeasurably better.
Right. Go over the last 40 years and tell me how many times the Mets won the division versus the Braves. How do you know? How do you know? Because I've seen it. The Mets aren't good enough yet. That's the point. Yeah, because you get the first guy talking about, the Mets going to win the division. I mean,
Well, that's just lunacy.
best case is you're maybe a third wildcard team. That's the fundamental difference. I am not. I refuse to accept. I don't care if Evan says it with his different colored beard. I don't care who says it. Eddie calls up. I don't want to hear any Met fan talk about how they're excited about this little Mets team with Luis Severino, who's throwing BP for the Yankees last year, and Sean Manaea, both big question marks, being the anchors of their staff. I'm over it. I expect more. I will not sit here and be second citizen to anybody. And the Mets won't either after this year. So for me, this is a nice little year. Get it all in. This is the last time. This is it. It's changing after this year. It has to.
So if for a moment, if you may just suspend your reality for a moment just to answer the question here, because I find your answer, I imagine, will be very interesting here. If you don't get Soto, then what is the mentality?
Well, it's not just about Soto, obviously. I mean, but I told you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a pinstripe sledgehammer to that Mets crown.
Decorate it for you, of course.
But it's not just about Soto. Obviously, that's going to be the main talking point. I do think that's going to be a huge thing to shift the balance of power. We talked about that with Yamamoto. It's even more so with Soto. But it's also about the development of these young guys. It's also about with Steve Cohen, his vision moving forward. But come on, you got to be realistic. Right now isn't it. You're getting sucked in. You want to believe, could they exceed expectations? Absolutely. Diamondbacks did it. The Phillies did it. There is a path for the Mets to be a playoff team, which would be a big deal this year. However, to me, it's not. I don't accept a playoff team. I want a team who could go into the year like last year. Didn't work out, but I loved last year. Not obviously during the year. I'm saying going into the year. I was excited saying this team could not only win a division, they could win a World Series. Fell flat on their face. It blew up. But at least going in, you knew that anything was possible. Going in this year, while anything in general is possible, realistically, they can't win the World Series.
Okay, they can't. They're nowhere near a World Series team.
Or division.
I agree. I mean, the Braves are miles in front of the Mets, and I think the Phillies are a lot better as well. I think most people agree with that. But see, the interesting thing about this, and I know that, again, I hear you. I know that you're rooting for the Mets to have a season of overachieve, and I know that you'll enjoy it if they ever do that, and you'll jump on and, you'll be a Mets lunatic every day during the summer, and I'll love it, and the Yankees will be really good. We'll go back and forth. Subway Series will be insane. Trade deadline will be insane. It'll be awesome. It'll be a great summer. See, the problem, though, when you put all those eggs in one Juan Soto basket, and if the Mets don't have the season that we hope that they possibly maybe home run Hail Mary could, then Juan Soto ain't coming here.
Well, that's a different
because he's going to look
argument.
at a train wreck of a team, and they're not going to be appealing to Juan Soto.
Yeah, it's a
different part of the conversation.
It is.
But it's a piece of the conversation.
I just think it's about money with Soto, which is why I think that eventually they're going to get him. And look, we're going to have eventually there's going to be a result. Blood will be drawn with Soto one way or another. Either the Mets are going to miss out yet again, or they're not. They're going to get him, and maybe things change. And I firmly believe they're going to change. But as for this year, that's the more exciting thing to me, following along with Juan Soto, knowing that they could go out there and get a big star, steal him away from the Yankees, and also continue to build the team the right way from the ground up with all the young players.
Got a quick one for you. Let's say that it's middle of July, and Juan Soto's hitting a robust we'll go 319. He's on pace for, I don't think he hits 40 home runs, but in the vicinity, 120-something ribbies, OPS over 1,100 or in that neighborhood. He's going to be an MVP candidate, top 2, top 3. Yanks are 15, 16 games over 500. How are you, and the Mets are languishing. You're still enjoying that? Like, the Soto stuff is still appealing. If the Yankees are crushing it, Soto's dominating, and the Mets are floundering.
Looking forward to the offseason, yeah.
I understand that, but don't you think that becomes less likely that he goes to Queens?
I don't think it has anything to do with the results of this year.
All right. 877-337-6666. So, Met fans, how do you carve out a little enthusiasm for the season? I think that you could. I think that you should. You heard what Sal said. BT and Sal on the Fan.